Okay, so the next thing that we're going to talk about now is we're actually going to start to look at the product in our marketing mix. So the product is considered anything that the consumer considers to have value. So what you're selling has value. Now, when we talk about value, we'll get into what value means in a bit of a minute. But the management role here is to provide the desired characteristics of the value proposition. So what are we saying this thing is worth, or how are we trying to get people to recognise value in what we've got? And that includes the value add that we give into the product, such as our warranties and guarantees. So it's not just the product itself, but it's all the other bits and pieces that are associated with that. And we'll get into those various elements. We start to look at the elements of the product itself. So obviously in the middle we have the product. And coming off the product, we start to look at the other elements that we have, such as, well, what's the brand? Okay, so what's your brand? Coca-Cola is a brand. We recognise that pretty obviously. When we see the sign out there, we know what it is, we know what it means, we sort of get a bit of an idea of what it stands for. We also start to look at, well, what's the warranty? So what sort of guarantee or what sort of return on investment am I going to get if there's something wrong with this? Am I going to get my money back? How are you making sure that the product that you're selling me is actually going to deliver the actual promise that you've made, which is why I bought it, based on the purpose. So what did I want the product for? Okay, so the product purpose, what am I going to be doing with it? Why have I bought it? On the other side, we start to look at the other characteristics of the product, which is the physical aspect. Okay, so what is the product or service? Okay, so when we start to talk about that, we might even talk about, the actual material it's made of. We might also start to look at even the wrapper becomes part of that. We start to get into that wonderful thing called quality. Okay, so we've all heard of quality before. How good is the product? What's the perception? Do people think that the product is a good quality product? Do they think it's a bad quality product? Is it cheap and nasty, or is it a nice premium thing that we think is going to be worthwhile? And down here we actually have the packaging. Because packaging comes into your product as well. We start to think about, well, what's the wrapper look like? What does it say when I buy it? Is it just cheap and nasty, or once again, is it part of the overall product itself that, is it the box it comes in? So we need to think about all those various bits and pieces that actually go into our product. So our branding, what's the name on it? The warranty, how do I know that it's going to provide the good or service or do what it's supposed to do? The purpose I've bought it for, or what the product was designed for, and sometimes people use products for things they weren't necessarily designed for. That can be bad, can be good also. We need to think about the physical characteristics of the product, we need to think about the quality of the product, and then we need to think about the actual packaging. So how is it actually going to be presented to me as a consumer there? So some of the key features of the product that when we start to look at the product itself, particularly in the physical, is we start to think about, well, what are the key features of this product? What is the colour of it? Does it come in a range of colours, or does it only come in one colour? Are there shapes? Colours. What about the various shapes it might come in? With that, what about different sizes of the product? Okay. What material is it made from? We start to think about how it can be, the sensory elements, the conditions of it, when I touch it, the feel, etc. So there's quite a lot into that physical area. Simple things like having various colour options. We've seen that with cars, they come in certain colours. We've seen that in various products that, there can actually be a whole different range of different sizes of a product, different container sizes, etc. So there are quite a lot of things that actually go into that to start to give us the key features of what that product is. A bottle, for example, we know plastic bottles, 600 ml, 1.25 litre, depending on why. My purpose might be very different. I might buy a smaller bottle because a 600 ml bottle suits me pretty well when I'm walking up and down the street. But if I'm thinking about having a bunch of friends over to share something, then I might need a larger size for home. Okay, so all those things start to come into that as well. We need to think about what are the key features, and then we move forward. We need to start thinking about our customers' needs and wants as well. We start to look at what the customer's trying to do. What's the industry sector that they're starting to fall into? Are they starting to look to purchase goods or services for us for health reasons? Okay, obviously if it's a health company or health-related service, that's going to have quite a lot of impacts on what your branding looks like. It's going to have a lot of impact on what the warranty is that you need to be able to provide. If it's a health product or service, people really want it to work. Okay, we need to think about the quality, particularly there. We might also start to look at needs and wants grouped into, need for celebrity. Okay, that people want to be, recognised, whatever it happens to be, or participate with people that they do recognise. We see products and services like Facebook, for example, would certainly go into that. Twitter, Instagram, etc. They're starting to deal on that. Also, same for magazines that might be out there. Those wonderful magazines that have all the stars and celebrities and what Kim Kardashian is doing this week, okay, which can be good, can be bad. We might also be looking at their need and want for entertainment. Okay, so if I'm an entertainment brand, if I'm your local cinema, then obviously that's going to have an obvious bearing. We know what the physical layout of a cinema is going to be. We understand that branding is important because they will still want to get certain names out there. We understand the purpose of why people are going there because obviously it's a cinema, it's a place for entertainment. We start to think about even the quality mix in a cinema. Cinemas used to just be, when I was young, you went and you bought a ticket and you sat in the cinema and you watched your movie. These days we have gold class, premium class, we have 3D effects, we have all sorts of amazing sound quality in there, so things have changed. And even within the same cinema, we can have different levels of quality going on in there. The way we package it and put the product together will obviously change. Okay, so that's if we looked at entertainment. We might also look at financial products. We might look at security, and we might also look at self-development. Now, when we start to look at financial products, even that can be a bit interesting because when I was a bank manager, obviously we'd have people come in and some people want to invest a lot of money and they'd want to have a very premium banking experience. They wanted the VIP type system. But the same bank or the same organisation also had to be able to suit a pensioner walking in or someone with a very low income. So they still wanted to receive a level of reasonable quality. We're still one organisation, we're still one bank in a suburban branch, but they would want to come in and still receive some sort of quality, but their price point had to be a bit lower. So we had to package some goods and services that were a little bit different for that person. We still had a brand that they could trust, so they were still happy to do business with us, and we still had the same warranties whether you had $2 with us or $2 million. But your purposes were very different. So as we can see, your product starts to turn into a bit of a product range, even amongst the business that you're in. Okay, so the benefits is what we start to talk about then. We start to talk about the benefits. The benefits of my product or service. So a benefit starts to describe how the product will be of advantage. What's it going to do for me? Okay, why would I get it? Is it going to meet my needs? Is it going to satisfy a goal or solve my problems? Okay, why am I coming to you to get this thing? If I'm the coffee shop on a suburban street, is my problem that I just don't have caffeine in the morning, or is it that I actually am doing this as part of my ritual? That I come along in the morning and it's the way I start my day, the coffee has to be there, which is why I don't drink decaf, and then we start to move on through that we've actually got those initial things out there. Is it about my opportunity then to socialise with other people, or is it just only about the coffee? Am I the best coffee in town? But if we can start to really talk about what my product does in terms of benefits to the person, then that allows me to really differentiate my business against other people. Okay, once I get to this point, I can sit there and really point out why I'm different and what I do better. A good example is up the road, they've got a coffee shop and it's got a nice little recess where you can drop in, order your coffee, and you can be moving very quickly. Nice friendly staff, it's very quick. Okay, so the benefit to that is, yes, it's coffee the same as everybody else, but where they've differentiated is that they have a very quick turnaround of service. There are another couple of coffee shops around here, maybe not so much. I have to go inside, I have to wait, it's a bit of a slow process. Look, they're all selling coffee, their price is about the same, one person's branding isn't better than the next person's necessarily. The only thing they're really warranting me is a cup of coffee that will be a cup of coffee. The quality's not all that different either. It's a cup of coffee, so on a physical level it's not terribly different. And the packaging, well, it's a coffee cup. Okay, but at the end of the day, they have a benefit to the way they have put their place that allows me to get in and get out fairly quickly and get to work on time. We also start to think about, from a product perspective, we might think about, does the product offer me additional safety? Okay, so Does it keep me secure? Does it provide security or safety to someone else? You see that a lot in the automotive industry, obviously. People want to stay very safe in cars. Once upon a time, we didn't have seat belts, we didn't have airbags, we just drove a car, and if you crashed, you died. Obviously, consumers decided that was no fun, so we've moved to the position of now we have things like seat belts manufactured in there. We might also look at increased efficiency as one of the benefits of what we do. We want things to be efficient. We want them to work the first time. I don't want to have continuous faults and problems developing. I just want things to work the way they need to. It might also be about improving the product to save expense. Okay, so if I've got something with a lower operating cost, it'll save me money over time. It might be, sometimes it is more expensive up front, but if my long-term running costs are reduced, I save money. It might also just be a more efficient way of packaging the product so that it doesn't end up costing me, the consumer, a lot more. Once again, to go to automotive industry, we have things like the hybrid cars. They've got petrol, they've got electrical, and they can run for a lot longer without needing a new tank of gas. Okay, so one of the other things that we might want to do is improve the appearance of the product. Okay, things change, fashions change. We can get better development techniques that mean that we can actually produce a better product that actually looks nicer. Sometimes the original one came out, it was very basic, but over time we can continue to improve that. Yeah, you look at clothes, you look at vehicles. I keep looking back at old vehicles from like the 1980s and 1990s that are still clunking around, and they're basically three little boxes with wheels, the front, the back, and then there's this sort of middle section. And they all look the same, and there wasn't a whole lot of style to it. They were just very functional, very utilitarian, but very boring to look at. Now even the most basic car appears to have a bit of effort put into making it appear nice. One of the other things that we might look at is our development is to create greater comfort in the products and services that we offer. Different levels of comfort come out of it because new materials come out. Once upon a time, when I used to go camping, I used to have this great big sleeping bag that was goosed down and ducked down, and you'd go camping into the mountains, and it would be freezing cold at night, and you would get into your sleeping bag, and you'd still be freezing cold. Now, with the new materials out, I can actually have a much smaller thing that fits at the bottom of my backpack, and it'll keep me warm even though it's minus 10 degrees outside. New materials means new shoes, new clothes, etc., new textiles, so that can create comfort, and that can be applied to a whole range of things, not just things that you wear. The other thing that we can do is we can enhance the image over time. Things get better, faster, better, smaller, more stylish, okay? Once we first started having things like MacBooks once upon a time, even the earlier MacBooks were these large things. Over time it's become very sleek, very elegant, and when we use some of these tools, we actually look fairly professional. It does enhance the image and create a better look generally. So when we're starting to think about our products, we start to think about, well, how do we group them, okay? So we can group them, when we come down over here, we can group them into, well, what's the function? So why are people using those? Okay, so we can group them by function. In other words, what do they do for our people? We can also group them by the price range. So, I guess there's not really a spot for that, but we might think about our pricing. As I talked about, when I was working for a bank, we had different products aimed at different customers. Some of those were more expensive products than others because they offered a different range of benefits. Same, we might look at just putting all our things around the same price in the same range. I guess you'd see a lot of that with vehicles. They have obviously the day-to-day vehicles, then they have some of the slightly better ones. We might also think about grouping our products by the customer group they satisfy. So are they the ones aimed at our families? Are they the ones aimed at singles? A good example for that would be cruise lines. Okay, you have these cruises and it's a family cruise and they've got that and it's free ice cream for the kids, etc. And then they'll have a different cruise that's just really aimed at singles or matchmaking, etc. The other thing is that we might look at also the way we promote the product might be the way we group it. In other words, our online offering or whatever it happens to be. So we've got different ways to try and put our products together that they start to make a bit of sense in how we're offering them. The next thing that we look at is we start to look at our product or service mix. And the two things we look at there are width and depth. So with the width, what we're looking at is, well, how many of these products and service lines are we offering? When I think about Toyota, for an example, they have a whole range of products. They have small cars, they have medium, they have large, they have family movers, they have trucks, they have vans, they have a whole range. So their product line is quite wide. Everything from, I need a little shopping trolley to get to the shops and get down there and do my shopping, through to I need to move the whole football team, through to I need to move, large objects, etc. They then talk about the depth of the product range, which is the number of products or services offered. So how many? Okay, so in the small person vehicles, they might have a couple of different types, and then a couple of different types of vans, a couple of different types of trucks, a couple of different types of medium and large vehicles, and that starts to talk to their depth. Okay, so we have width. So width on the vehicles, from small, getting bigger, and then we have underneath the depth, so the range of products that sit underneath that. And when we talk about the product levels, we start with what is the core product? Okay, and when we talk about the core product, we're quite literally talking about, well, what is it? So what is it designed to do? Is it a computer? Is it a, what is it? Is it a cup of coffee? Is it a whatever it happens to be? From there, we move to your actual product. Okay, so we start to think about if my core product is a computer, well, a computer can be a whole lot of things. It can be anything from a little tablet through to a laptop, through to quite a large home PC type setup. In this case, we also start to look at going to the next level, which is the augmented stage. Okay, and what we're talking about there is we're talking about the extra bits and pieces that come into this particular offering. So when we look at the core, we're looking at the central sets of benefits. So what is it that the person actually wants? Okay, so in this case, we turn around and say, want a computer. That's what they want, and they want to be able to do all the standard things you would with software, etc. Now, one of the things they might decide they want to do is to be able to be fairly mobile. They don't want to be stuck in a particular space. So one of the things they might do is they might get a MacBook. Okay, so that's the actual product. So what is it they're actually looking to do? So in this case, they've bought the MacBook, okay? And we start to talk about, the physical features of the good or service. It suits their need because it's mobile. It's light, they can move it around. They know what the style of it is. They know it's got a metallic finish, whatever it happens to be. We've talked a little bit about the prestige of owning it, perhaps. They might be looking at that. There's a whole range of reasons why they might have chosen that off their basic need for a core product. When we start to look at the augmented area, what we're looking there is, well, what's the extra thing? What's the bonus component of going down this line? In this case, Apple provide really good aftercare. Okay, so with the augmented, we're looking at what is that extra that I'm really getting for what I'm doing. So is it the Apple aftercare that I know that if something goes wrong with my device, that their customer service and follow-up is really good. So the augmented product becomes a selling point. I mean, if I just get a computer and I buy some generic brand, I might save a bit of money, it might be quite good, but if anything goes wrong, I'm really on my own. On the other hand, if I'm buying through this and actually looking at the complete offering, I might get my computer, which happens to be a MacBook, which may or may not cost a bit extra, but I know that if anything goes wrong, the aftercare is going to be fantastic. So quite a lot of brands make a point of the augmented product. Okay, 24-hour help desks, aftercare service, additional warranty, all those sort of things that go the extra mile to make sure that my product just works the way I need it to when I need to. So to cap back over, we've looked at understanding grouping the products. We've started to think about how we're going to define the core product itself. We're starting to think about, what need it's going to satisfy. So how do we get to the actual product? And then we start to really look at, well, what else can I add to that as part of the product offering to add that additional value? And if we can add the extra value for it, we can often charge for that as well. All right, thank you very much.